Got some water?
Oh, thank
Yeah.
You got the front half. I got the front half twice. You got the back half.
Yeah. I started at one. No, it's not extra. It turns out, yeah, no, I know. They got 132, but I didn't realize this morning it starts over. All right, so wait, what do you want, this part? Yeah. Yeah, okay. We'll just take it apart. But then still they're gonna have like. Yeah.
This time we adjourn the closed session and reconvene the open session. Matt, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No action to report in our closed session. At this time, we have a public comment period. Persons may speak on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Speakers are requested to fill out a speaker card and to state their name and address before addressing the board. Individual speakers are asked to limit their comments for any item to not more than 3 minutes in order to allow everyone who wishes to speak the opportunity to do so. Groups are asked to limit their comments to a total of 10 minutes. The board shall limit the total time of public comment to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If additional time is needed, public comment will continue after the discussion items. I have a few speaker cards. Some of them are about an agenda item, so we're going to hold those for that agenda item. I have a couple others. One, Sue Rowe.
Julie, it seems like there's a number of people that might want to talk about that agenda item later. It's possible that we move it up on the agenda to be earlier, since it's right now scheduled to be the very last thing on the agenda. I'm referring to the discussion on interdistrict attendance and district residency policy. Rather than having it last, could it be moved up?
Well, I guess my concern is that we have a lot of other items on the agenda also.
Yeah, I just see a lot of employees in the audience that might have come for that particular item from the letters that we received. It seems maybe we could move it up. I don't know if there's a reason we have to have discussion last versus action, but could be after the reorganization. Then our employees could go home after that particular item that I believe they came for. And it sounds like
not that we wanted to go home necessarily.
No, not that we would want them to go home, but I hate to make everybody stay late to the very last item when they have, many of them have to teach in the morning.
My only question would be, do you think there's any people that are want to be here for this item that, knowing it was later on, didn't come yet. That would be my only concern. I think there are some that are, you know.
I don't think anyone's gonna wanna come at the very end of the meeting
But
if they were coming for that. What?
What I'm
We
saying
haven't
is notice.
noticed at a certain time in the agenda if somebody's still at work or something.
Right,
They might be
but-
timing themselves for that.
Well, maybe, but we don't, these are not, this agenda isn't time certain, it isn't.
No, it gives estimates.
Right, but I see a lot of staff members in our audience, and I know that they have to work in the morning, and they're here now. And I don't think there's people that are gonna come later, knowing it's a bit
Still
early.
relatively early. I don't know, I mean,
Well, if that would be a concern, then we could always, somebody comes in that wants to speak to that, we could have them, we could open the public comment at the end for them, I mean, that's possible, right? They came late in the game after we already talked about it,
I mean, at the very end of the
to
meeting.
comment. Yeah, they wouldn't get through the discussion, but that's the,
it's been rare.
Maybe we can move it after action item B, have a discussion item. Do the two,
Yeah,
Formal
that would be
things.
fine, after action item B.
I'm fine with that.
Is there a consensus on that?
I'm okay with
Yes.
that.
that's fine.
So we'll move discussion item D to after action item B. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, thank you for your patience.
Well, I first of all want to thank you because I was going to speak about moving the agenda item up, but I was also going to ask whether in general you might consider putting discussion items as a rule up at the front of the meeting so that there's a known time for the public who would like to make comments to know when to show up. Because if it's towards the end, the further down the agenda it is, the less certain you are of exactly when it's going to happen. And of course, people with kids and people working the next stage to think, well, I'll need to come in at 10 o'clock, almost guarantees that you'll have very little public comment. And so I'd like the board to consider doing that for the discussion items generally up at the top of the meeting. I have one quick second thing. Whilst we're waiting for the discussion item that many of the teachers are here for, would it be all right for us to use the side room to be grading papers and working? Was there any objection to that? Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I have Emily Passion.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you now for changing the agenda so we could be present. I did leave one at home and could only bring, we're trying to balance it all out. So it's nice to be able to come and participate, because I appreciate hearing what you all have to say and also hearing what our coworkers have to say. So thank you for switching the item, greatly appreciate it.
Okay, this is all the speaker parts I have. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay. This time we will recognize our employees of the month for November 2013. The board will recognize Janny Jurichko of the certificated staff and Michelle Orinda of the classified staff for their outstanding efforts on behalf of the school district. Talk about both at the same time. We are pleased to honor Danny Jurichko for her outstanding efforts as Inclusion Program Specialist at OIS. Danny works tirelessly every day with care and compassion to meet the diverse challenges of our students with special needs. Her commitment to her students is unparalleled, and we are truly fortunate to have such a gem of an educator working with our students. Michelle, I'm just going to read the whole thing together. Michelle Bournonville is an instructional assistant at OIS and works with students in our inclusion program. The needs of these students are very demanding, and Michelle always displays patience and positive energy in her efforts to support them. Recently, she went so far as to change into a PE uniform as a way to encourage students who had been reluctant to do so. Since then, the child has willingly complied with wearing her uniform. It is creative strategies like this that make Michelle a true gift to the OAS community. Thank you both.
Mr. Randall is shy about coming out.
Okay, at this time, we will move to our consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and acted on by the board of trustees as one motion. There is no discussion of these items before the board vote unless a member of the board, staff, or public requests specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent calendar. It is understood that the administration recommends approval on all consent items. Each item on the consent calendar approved by the board shall be considered and form adopted as recommended. This time we have a motion on the consent calendar.
I'd like to pull item number D, please. And then you'll make a motion. I move that we adopt the consent calendar excluding item D.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the consent calendar is adopted, second by item D, which will be heard at the end of the action items. Okay, at this time, we move on to our action items. Our first is our action item A, annual reorganization.
So at this time of the meeting, it would be necessary for the board to elect officers. That would be the first step.
So the first is the election of the president. Do we have any nominations?
I want to say one thing. I'd be happy to, at this point, as a contributing member, to step in and do either of the roles if need be. Happy to help in any way I can.
I'd like to nominate Chris Severson for president.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate Tyson for vice president.
Oh, this is just on president.
Oh, other nominations.
Other nominations for president? Is there anything? Okay, is there any comment or discussion from the board? This time I'll open up to public comment. Are there any comments from the public? All right, so we need a motion on this item.
I move that Chris Severson be elected president of the board of trustees.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. It's all you. You move. Wow, that's fast.
Move on.
Thing by thing.
Julie, thank you very much for a great year as board president. Really appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you, Julie. It's a lot of work.
On this side.
Our next item is the election of Board of Trustees Vice President. Sarah, did you have a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Tyson from Health.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Nominate Matt.
Discussion from the board?
What is the process exactly? Now we have 2 nominations.
So we'll have a discussion, we'll
Don't understand.
ask for public comment, and then we'll have a motion, and then we'll vote on that motion.
So as far as discussion, I am happy to serve as vice president.
Any comment from the?
Oh, I
Somebody else
could,
is gonna say
yeah.
something.
I can say something too.
Okay.
Tyson has been on board 3 years. He hasn't been an officer yet. He's doing a great job. I think he deserves the chance to be an officer on our board. And I did look it up in our board policy under organization meetings, and it does indicate that when a person is not new and has been on board and not already been an officer, that I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, but that person, would be elected next into becoming an officer. So I think Tyson deserves our Not that I don't think Matt should, this is extremely awkward. Matt does a great job too. I just know that Matt was previously president 2 years ago, and before that, I'm sure was vice president. And we've been on the board, 2 years longer than Tyson had, but Tyson hasn't been an officer, so I think he deserves our support being an officer.
I'd be happy to perform the duties and welcome the chance, so.
Any comments from the public?
Cheryl Shannon, President. I too want to reiterate, I too read the board policy, and I know that Tyson hasn't served, and he has been on the board, has done an exceptional job, has really listened to all stakeholders, very much appreciate how you listen to all stakeholders, and consider each stakeholder in your decisions. I also want to say Matt's done a great job, did so on the task force, really appreciate that as well. I think they both do an amazing job. I think it's important to give a person who hasn't been an officer an opportunity, who's been a member of the board.
Other comments?
Emily Cashin. I appreciate, I know most of you up on the board, and I commend all of you and compliment all of you for giving your time, doing your duty and service. And I am one who likes to be actively involved and not always able to be. And I think it's nice when sometimes some people we switch roles, even though we're all not used to the same hat. And I appreciate all of you taking turns and kind of taking different roles in leadership. And I hope we look at that as the board also. I know we do that at our sites amongst teams and amongst grade levels. And so I welcome that.
Seeing no further public comment, we bring it back to the board.
No, I just want to say, I think Tyson and Matt both did a really good job on the task force, and, my thought process, and I do think, our board policy does say that traditionally it would go to someone who has some sort of, I just think that's, I think his experience and his availability and ability to engage in board activities really is important, and I think his leadership, he did a great job as president a few years ago, and I just think he'd be a good person to be as president.
I was just going to read the wording, I found it from the board policy, and I know you can have your own opinions. But what it does say is the board shall each year elect one of its members to be vice president. Traditionally, this member shall be one who previously has not served in office, unless all the board members have previously served in office.
I guess the one thing I throw in the mix too, and it's looking in the rearview mirror, but I can safely say my first meeting as a board member when I was looking actually to have you elected, Julie, and I thought it was rather odd that the board didn't honor the newly elected from the public at large at that point in time. So put that out there that we are a little behind the ball by a year or so at the end of that. Surprise to me at that point.
Well, I mean, I guess, my concern is just how busy I know you are with work, and just wanting to make sure, that there would be, that you have the time. I mean, I know you did do a good job with the task force and being available for that, and that would be, a concern.
Well, it's a,
And I know-
if it happens, I'll prioritize it as though I've really prioritized in the past, so.
And the task force, you were there all
Yeah, that was a-
throughout the task force meetings, which were a lot of meetings in a close amount of time.
It was a fair amount of hours.
A motion?
I move that we elect Tyson Grumbles for vice president.
Second. Is there a second?
I don't believe I can second my own. I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed. Is there another motion on the table?
I move that we elect Matt Moran as president.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is appointment of Board of Trustees Secretary. We have a nomination for Board of Trustees Secretary.
I nominate Joe Jackinette.
Further board discussion? Is there any public comment? Seeing none? Any further discussion or motion?
Joe does a great job. I make a motion that Joe be our secretary.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have assignment of board committees. Joe, do you have a list of,
These are the current committees, if you will, or they're not necessarily committees, they're not committees of the board, they're appointments to various committees and that we currently have.
So are there any issues, things that people want to bring up, want to change from current committee assignment?
Well, I want to say that since you're still involved in the
Yeah.
lunch team, right? So it seems really silly to have someone else be our representative since we go to those
and said I should do the ledge committee this year. I purposely didn't want to do it last year because I was also earmarking that, and I was, you know, it was a new hat for me to be a school board member, and I wanted to kind of get comfortable with that and not be misrepresenting myself as school board member when I was also earmarking that. But I think I'm comfortable with it, so I would like to be ledge committee person. You could still be an alternate, or Tyson could be on the phone. That's what you're saying.
Right, I think that was my thought, just seeing last year, to be a little strange for you not to be that person.
Well, I didn't think it was strange, but now that I look at it again and I realize your two names, I thought it was me and someone else, honestly, and I forgot that it was
I think
you
Tyson
and
was
Tyson.
sort of the backup.
Yep.
like the alternate.
Yeah, backup.
So maybe replace Julie with Sarah, is that what, you're hearing?
Do we want to still be backup for?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
And then Tyson, the School Board Association, is that going?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's good information, so I'm happy to keep doing it.
And then EFO? and that's,
Do we not need a backup person for that?
Oh, that's,
CSBA?
Well, what I've done is just reached out to the president, or like in the case, I bring it up in here if we have overlap.
okay.
Similar to the evening we had a facility meeting, task force meeting. Threw it out there a month ahead, so it could be anybody. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
Okay.
unless there's someone who has genuine interest and they want to be first on the list. I was throwing it out at these meetings because there's only four meetings a year.
So Chris,
Yeah.
it's increasingly difficult for me to get to EFO.
Okay.
I don't know if, I don't have a kid who's gonna be riding the bus, and I believe you do, yeah. So I don't know if, the School Board Association, I mean, Tyson, I assume EFO is just as hard for you to get to at 9 o'clock in Orinda as it is
Just
for
have
me.
to, just have to plan on it.
Yeah.
Is EFO at 9 or is it still at 8?
It's early. I have to come back through the tunnel from Oakland. Although now at least there are 2 tunnels. Julie, historically, that's been a tough time for you with your youngest?
Because middle school
Yeah,
starts.
okay.
That's a monthly meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy to get in there with like Sarah, Matt,
You wanna split it?
that's either which way.
I'll split it with you.
If it's 8:15, it's, whether I'm sleeping in a lot,
But,
or
coffee and food, we'll look it up.
just need to get more work closer to home that way.
So I'm happy to split that one with Tyson.
Okay. And then on the school bus, I'm happy to continue the school bus. It's typically 2 to maybe 3 meetings a year, so it's not a lot. There's some benefits to having some continuity there. We don't meet all that often.
Yeah, and I can stay on as an alternate. I got bus riders. A few bus drivers.
So, can we recap? Are we all? So I have Tyson, the School Board Association, Tyson and Matt at EFO, Ledge Committee Sarah, with Tyson as an alternate, and then Palmer School Bus, myself. myself, and Tyson.
That leaves Julie with that.
Including Julie with nothing.
Yeah, and I just realized Tyson's got his name down on 4.
I could be the backup on the school bus.
You want to
I
take,
don't have a bus
you
rider.
want to give up one of your alternates maybe, or?
Take your pick.
Which one?
I was gonna say, I can probably get to EFO as well. I could do EFO. I kind of forgot that I was down, Matt,
Yeah.
for EFO. I kind of forgot that, so I'm sorry
Okay.
about that. But I'd be willing to split it with you.
Okay.
We have to
Coordinate.
communicate back and forth.
Okay.
If, you know, if
Yeah,
that's
so
okay
I'm-
with you.
I'm-
Just
So
to
that
relay
doesn't
for
get
you.
Julie.
That's
Well, okay, but Julie can't get to
Chipping
the,
away.
I can get to the FO easier than she can. She has to pick something else.
Good thing we didn't put that discussion in sooner.
Well, I could do
What
one
would
of
you
the
want?
alternate ones, instead of Tyson, or Lennox, or school bus.
Well, my understanding of school buses, you probably won't go to a meeting because Chris makes them all. So I can weigh in as an alternate, and he does pretty well as
Yeah, there's only a few.
attendance of those meetings. So I'm happy to drop off Ledge. I mean, at the CC, the Contra Costa deal, we talked about that anyway, so.
Yeah.
I get plenty,
Right,
if that works.
that's good. That makes sense.
Solved.
So EFO, we put Matt and Sarah back.
Yes.
Sarah's alternate. I think
Well,
it's
no,
kind
we
of,
alternate,
Yeah.
as opposed to alternate with alternate, which means if the main person can't go. We're gonna alternate the FO. Okay.
okay. Any public comment? Seeing none? Have a motion from the board?
I move that we adopt the new committees and board representation for 2014.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next is action item B, resolution 1407, authorized signature resolution.
Resolution 1407 is the certificate of signatures. It's approved annually by the board. The form authorizes particular personnel to sign warrants, orders of salary payment, which is also known as payroll, payroll payments, notices of employment, and contracts. There have been no changes to the names that are included on the list, so the list is basically status quo from prior year.
Any questions for Ruth? Any public comment? On this item? Seeing none? Do we now sign, or do we just authorize it? So do we have a motion to adopt resolution 1470?
I move that we adopt resolution 1407 and authorize signature resolution.
Second.
Sarah? Aye.
Tyson?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye. Okay. So now we will move to discussion items. Discussion item B, review district policies on interdistrict attendance and residency.
We've included some board policies and administrative regulations as the request of the board. So we have the district residency administrative regulation, the administrative regulation for residency based on parent or guardian employment, the interdistrict policy 5117, and the administrative regulation 5117 for interdistrict transfers.
Thank you, Lorraine, for including this information. I requested that we look at this because, well, we got a letter from an employee which caused me to look at this policy and realize that in the past, well, first of all, there's education code that allows for districts to accommodate employees in their schools, employees, students, children. Employees' children can be accommodated to go to school in the district, even if they live outside of the district boundaries. And there's education code that states that. And then I thought to myself, well, what do other districts do? And I looked at some surrounding districts and found that many of them accommodate employees and there's two different policies, which are the two that we included. Thank you very much. The district residency and the interdistrict transfer, interdistrict attendance policy. The district residency policy is even though there are several districts that include that, is a little more potentially problematic. But I think that it is important for us to try to determine how can we accommodate our employees' children, since it only makes sense in terms of there are employees we don't want them to have their children going to school elsewhere, a long distance away, et cetera, et cetera. There's multiple reasons for it, which I'll get into in a minute. But I first want to say, the number of districts that included employee children, accommodating them either on the district residency policy or the interdistrict attendance policy, was basically every district that I looked at in the area in Contra Costa County. For example, including Martinez, San Ramon, I'm just starting from further out, San Ramon, Mount Diablo, and then closer in Lafayette, Moraga, even Piedmont, all these districts, and Walnut Creek, Acalanes, they all accommodate employee children. So it's a question of the majority of, or more of them, it seems, included in the interdistrict transfer, which I think is less problematic than the district residency, although some included just only in the district residency. So with that said, I want to suggest that we look at revising our interdistrict, and I would like to get feedback from other board members at the end of this discussion. But I think it would make sense to revise our interdistrict policy. That would be the AR 5117, which is called Interdistrict Attendance Eligibility for Interdistrict. That's what it says at the top. Interdistrict Attendance Eligibility for Interdistrict Attendance. Maybe I miscopied that. No, that's what it says. Page 245 in the board packet. So under that, what I would propose is number 6 could say that students, that number 6 reason to accept interdistrict transfers could be the student's parent or guardian is employed by the school district for Education Code 48204. And then down below, what many districts have done, have stated that this will only apply basically if there's room. And there's, I didn't write down all the details of the reasons because I wanted to make sure there would be board consensus before spending a huge amount of time on this. But for example, I was going to read you what's in one of the other ones here. Lafayette has sort of a very long, very detailed explanation. But they basically put in wording so that the district has an out if the classes are all full in that grade level and that kind of thing, which does make sense because you don't want to jam yourself in a place where it's going to cost you more money to accept one more student. But if you add that and then you include the language that says if there's room in the, 3 different ways, it seems totally reasonable to me that we could revise our interdistrict policy and make that a priority, assuming there's room for our employees, because I know that we accept interdistrict transfers from other areas, and yet if we don't give our employees a preference, a priority, while we're accepting other interdistrict transfers, that's sending the wrong message to our employees. We want to send a more positive message to them. So, and I can go on about that positive message. I mean, everybody knows you are going to get a better work environment if you treat your employees with respect. And this is, to me, about treating our employees with respect, giving them a priority over someone else who is not associated with the district, that lives outside the district, who might be applying for a district transfer. Okay, so I'll stop there for now and see what others' comments are.
Other questions from the board?
Well, I think it's a significant change we're talking about, and just my opinion is that if we are considering making a change, I'd like to see all the policies, all the neighboring, I'd like to have some time to study all the policies of our neighboring districts. Take a look at that. Because I know things get very, very specific, there are a lot of exclusions. My only other concern is that when you favor one group, you tend to discriminate against another. And there are issues against, I know that there are liability concerns in other districts about showing favoritism to district employees, you're then discriminating against other employees that work in your city that you don't let transfer into your district. So if you let a teacher's child in, but you don't let somebody who works at the post office's child in, you're then susceptible to liability and legal action from that employee at the post office. So I'd also want to make sure we get legal input from our legal counsel. I have a lot of concerns about that discrimination.
I mean, can you tell us, do we have any historical data on how many teachers' children have applied to attend here, or how many were denied, or how many were accepted, under our current policy?
Since 2010, we've had 2 denials. We had actually 3 denials this year, but once the final enrollment came in at the grade levels that they were denied at, they were retracted. And so of the 3 that were retracted, 1 accepted and 2 denied. So our acceptance. So since 2010, only 2 employees have been denied, and that was back in 2010. And we had 23, a total of 23 interdistrict transfers by employees. 2 were denied in 2010. We had 17 approved in 2010-11, 17 approved in 11-12, 15 approved in 2012-13, and 15 approved this year.
So the vast majority of teachers' children who apply for an interdistrict transfer get in here and go and attend school here if they choose to. And it's really, so is the question just the fact that people don't find out till very late? Is that the issue? Because it sounds, you're saying out of, you said 23, and I didn't add up these numbers, but it seems like the vast majority of people who apply to attend here as an interdistrict transfer are actually attending.
So the question is when.
So is your concern just the fact that people don't find out till late in the process?
That is one of the concerns, there's more than one concerns, but yes. So when do they find out?
This year, the denials were sent out the week before school,
because we based it on the last known enrollment figures. And then we waited until the first week of school was completed and looked at the actual enrollment. And at that time, it was determined that there were some drops at one of our, or actually at 2 school sites, which left adequate space at those 2 sites. So all the interdistricts that had been applied for at that grade level were actually accepted. There were 5. A total of 5, 3 were in place, 2 were not in place.
So that's after the first week of school, they were accepted?
It was this year because we had a drop.
Mhm.
We had a drop in what we had anticipated
Mhm.
coming versus who actually showed up.
And how many of the interdistrict transfers this year were employee children?
There were 12 renewals and 3 new applications.
3 new applications. So those 3 new applications, they were not notified until a week after school started that they could attend school. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's because when we sent the denial notices, there was not adequate space. We
Yeah,
didn't
no,
have
I
the
understand.
space.
There was not adequate space, but my point is, if we don't have a preference, then that employee is getting the notice just like everyone else, and is being considered just like everyone else who applied, and that sends the wrong message to our employees. If we're gonna,
Well, I mean, I can see the benefit of wanting to create a preference. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if that's if it's legal. Are you allowed to create a preference, even if
Well-
other districts have done it? Is it legal
yeah,
to do that?
I said to,
Okay, so
just
can
to
I-
respond to
can I
Matt's
jump in?
question, and well, wait, let me just kind of
Yeah,
just
you got a
say.
different way of looking at it than
Yeah,
what
okay, but since Matt brought it up and you brought it up, what about other districts? I mean, I sent Joe, the interdistrict policies from a number of other districts. Many of them do it, they put it right in their policy. I understand they were not, no one has challenged or litigated this issue. And if we need to get legal opinion, great, let's get legal opinion. But my point is, many districts do this. It makes us look really bad if we aren't even talking about doing it. And
A lot of states discriminated in the past and didn't make it right. I mean, you have to
Okay,
still think,
well-
is it a legal policy to do that or not?
well, we've got it in Ed Code that you can, it's legal to give your, school districts may give their employees
School
preference.
districts may give preference to children of employees of a district,
All right.
not employees of the, of
I brought that up before, and then I was told that's too difficult because we were previously challenged on it for the district residency policy. So that's why I thought it'd be easier to go the interdistrict route, because we weren't previously challenged on it.
So I think we're moving a little bit into discussion. Any more questions for Marie?
That's more of a discussion, because we're, I don't have any questions.
One question I had, when people apply for interdistrict transfers, is it site specific, or do you ask for any spot in any site and you get assigned to whatever spot is available?
Some parents request specific sites. So it depends on the application. When we had available space at the grade level when school started, we offered, and we will offer, but sometimes people don't want to drive across the district. They might live in one area and they only want to go to one school, so they will ask specifically to go to that school. Others will just say, we don't care, we just want to put in any of your schools within this. So it's kind of, it's hit and miss.
So I'm going to open it up to public comment. We have some speaker cards from this. So first, Emily Passion.
Hi. I normally like to be more prepared. However, my hands are a bit full between work and being at home with 2 kids. but I would like to say that I grew up in Orinda. I came back, and I'm a teacher here, and a lot of my peers are back in Orinda and starting to come into our classrooms. And I feel very proud to be a teacher in Orinda. And I work really hard and glad to come in extra early and also leave as late as I can to make it home for nanny. I really like working with the district office and people and really furthering myself as a professional. And I feel that the district has invested a lot of money in their teachers. And I feel a lot of them are women who are fortunate enough to also move on to have families just like all of you. And I have looked and probably driven my husband to lose half his hair and make it turn gray of trying to move into Orinda, but I financially cannot afford it. And I would want to move here because I believe in the education we provide here. And I really believe in the education that keeps coming in and being brought forth. And we really consider as professionals what we teach our students as if they're our own kids. And I really want my children to have that same education, and I really am appreciative that you've opened the door to reconsider this, because I would like my children also to have that experience to a very thoughtful education, an education where teachers really have still a lot of heart in it and endless time, and for us to leave at our given, I forget the term, but our 3:15 time, to run home so we can pick up our kids at their school is a challenge, and I'd rather stay in my classroom to finish my job and follow through and not just leave it in the classroom and come back at 7:30. I'd rather be able to be a little bit more flexible, and I feel I can be a little bit more flexible if my children were also part of that process. So I really appreciate you, again, looking at all the factors and continuing to look at that, and I greatly appreciate your time.
Shane Watt?
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm a father of 3 daughters that are going through school here in Orinda. My wife Betsy and I have sent all 3 to Glorietta. 2 are now at OIS, and 1 is in 4th grade at Glorietta. We've had Miss Catherine Kang be our teacher 3 years in total for our first 2 children, and became aware of this issue several months ago, just in a casual conversation at FunFest. We really value our teachers here. We didn't move here for the schools to Orinda, but we greatly treasure what the teachers do for us and do for our children. And I'm for the board of trustees here. If we value the teachers and for what they do for our children, why don't we show the same respect and value to their children and allow them to participate here at the schools? So to the extent we can grant any sort of preference within our legal rights to do so, I would love to see that versus somebody coming in cold out of the district. So I appreciate your consideration. I've also drafted a letter I'll leave with each of you.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Barbara Henderson?
Thank you for listening. Excuse me. When I first came to the district back in 1985, I was told a story, perhaps apocryphal, about a school board member who supported the Orinda Wood development when many in Orinda didn't. And the people who didn't want outsiders moving into Orinda. But reportedly, this school board member said, oh no, let's reconsider. If Orinda Wood is affordable, then the maids and the teachers can live close to where they work. And so we were insulted. But upon reflection, I'm not so insulted. Of course the maids and the teachers want to live near where they work, not to have a house there, but to have their kids close to where they work. They want to make sure, all of us do, our kids are our Achilles heels. We want to make sure that they're safe, that they're secure, that we can provide the very best that we can for them. And one of the great benefits of teaching in Orinda back in the day, when I started, was that there was no question that if you wanted your child go to school in Orinda and you were a teacher in Orinda, that was your right. State law guaranteed that. When the state abandoned that and Ed Code allowed school districts to continue to allow children of teachers to go to the schools within their district, at some point, Orinda changed its policy. And I don't know why. And at the risk of sounding kind of snarky, even though I'm sure that no board member then or now intended it, it feels perhaps to us like maybe the children of Orinda shouldn't have to attend school with those other children. Or maybe if you can't afford to live in Orinda, you don't deserve to have your kids go to school in Orinda. Or maybe the teachers ought to wait in line like everybody else because they're just the same as everybody else. And that is sometimes how one of us who wants the very best for our child, who wants the kind of education that we provide for the children of Orinda, for our own kids, who wants our kid close. So if our kid gets sick, it isn't a 2-hour drive. To be here, teaching the kids we teach, knowing that if there's an emergency, we can zip out and handle it and zip back instead of being absent for a whole day or a whole week. And I think a policy that allowed teachers to have their kids near, and I bet this is true in other districts, but I didn't research it, reduces absenteeism, makes teachers work even harder, longer hours because it's easy to do that. If you zip over to the elementary school where your kid goes, pick that kid up, put him in the after-school club where you work, you can stay. So please, please think about writing the language that reinstates, we're not talking about adopting anything new, that reinstates a policy that truly I did not know until weeks before this meeting wasn't still in effect. Thank you.
Sue Boudreau?
I would like to offer an analogy. So when I go to a restaurant, I would love to think that the staff at the restaurant, the chef and all the kitchen staff, taste the food that they're going to serve me and that they're allowed to eat at that restaurant. And I actually rather shudder to think of the alternative. So thank you.
Roshan?
President. I've been an engineer almost 25 years, and I came here 8 years ago. One of the considerations at that time was I was thinking of adopting. That was the option that was left for me in this stage of my life. That was very attractive. Frank Brunetti was the superintendent. I remember meeting with him. I was very excited by the fact that financially I can't afford to live real close to Orinda. And recently I went to a financial advisor, and that financial advisor shared with me that economically I could not afford the daycare expenses, the after-school care, to be able to commute from where I can afford. And that was very emotional to me. That sort of determines my path in terms of having a family, having children. And that's something that's very important to me. The other thing I remember during the parcel tax, we had many, many teachers working with the district to pass the parcel tax. And part of the language in the parcel tax was to attract and retain. And I think about whether we're going to be able to continue to attract the highest quality when there's districts close to us that have it as a priority. They may not have it in their board policy, but they have it as a practice. And so I think, how is that going to change the educational opportunity of the parents that we have here in the district? We won't know. But I don't want to gamble on the fact that we're not gonna know how that may change. The other thing too I have to consider is the way the system is, for me to move to a district that does prioritize, I can't take all my years with me. So I love this district, I work hard in this district, I really want to stay. But I really want the district to support myself wanting to also have the same thing that all of you can afford. And I appreciate your consideration and looking at this carefully and making that a possibility. Thank you.
Deborah Jokish.
I know I've been up here one time already to talk to you about my son, well, and my daughter too, but my son turned 5 in 2009, and I applied to get him into the district and was denied. Well, actually, I never heard anything. In like a week before school started, I called and was told, well, you've been denied. And I didn't, words can't explain how much of a slap in the face that felt like. I remember being told when I was hired in '97 that, oh yeah, your kids get to, go to school here. And I didn't grow up in this kind of community. So I was like, wow, I want my kids to have this kind of education. And I'm that teacher that they tend to give those kids that need just a little, extra loving and a little more, coddling. And I like to think that I helped them on their middle school way. I want my kids to have that. When they need a teacher who is one of the best in their field, their teacher's there for them. And I lucked out. My kids are in Lafayette, but I had to move. And I'm still renting because I can't afford to buy in Lafayette or Orinda. But I want my kids, I'm still a parent, and I still want them to have that. And it shouldn't be based on, do I make enough money to live here? I mean, you guys, I've been working here for 18 years. I think you like my job. Don't you like me? But it's hard not to take it personally when that isn't a right for us to have our kids. And I'm fighting for others who have younger kids. Thank you.
Karen Miller.
Good evening. I'm Erin Miller, as you have heard. I am a first grade teacher here in the district. I've actually been here for about 15 years. Started in OIS and in the Wade of Glorieta. Very thankful. I love those little first graders. They're quite cute. And I take my job very seriously here in the district. My husband thinks a little too much sometimes. And a little bit of background history. Deborah Jokish and I both were pregnant together and in the same mommy group together. So it turns out we had 5-year-olds at the same time. So I was the second other denial in 2009 and 10, and I'm not going to cry. But life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So my husband and I chose to sell our home, great little neighborhood, and we are now living in a great town. We live in Alamo, but it was a financial burden on us, and it still is. But I don't really want to go down the woe is me thing because, we're in a great place. My kids are in a great place. But the quality of education here is amazing. And a lot of it has to do with the amount of effort and time that the district and the district employees put into us as teachers. Like, I feel so grateful to be given my own education as a teacher. I feel like Orinda has made me an amazing teacher, and it's filled with other amazing teachers who are surrounding this room. And no matter what, no matter what great school my kids go to, it's just, in my heart, it's never going to compare to the amazing community and the amazing place that we have here. So I really do, I respect the board members who brought this forward. I respect all of you for listening to us. And I really do stand up here as an advocate for all those young teachers at our school, those little tiny munchkins that run around their mommies in circles, who really do deserve to be considered just like everybody else, to have a great education for their children. So thank you for your time in considering this, and I really appreciate it.
That's all the speaker cards I have. Is there any further comments on this item on the topic?
I was just going to fill out a speaker card. I have two children that are at OIS.
Sorry, Adam, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Adam Miller, OIS teacher. As I listened to everyone speak, I was very moved about sort of why it's good and why it's important for teachers. But let me perhaps flip the issue on its head. As a teacher, when I know that my children, like I have a daughter in 8th grade right now, and I was just, going through and planning a new unit on water bottle rockets. And part of my mind in going through this is knowing that my own daughter is going to be getting this curriculum that we're developing. She's in the classroom right next door with the other 8th grade science teacher. And in a sense, it's a form of profit sharing. Right? But it doesn't cost you guys anything. Remember, when more kids come in, you get more ADA. And so here you have all of these teachers that do what we do, not just as a job, but when our children go here, it's also a form of sort of almost volunteering for our kids' school. Right? So you get this amazing, for you folks as the Board of Trustees, you ensure an absolutely dedicated and involved employee. I mean, you can't get a better deal when it comes to profit sharing. And remember, we bring our own ADA when we bring our kids with us as well. I want to specifically address something Matt and Julie said about whether or not it's legal. The basic premise of our society is that the question is not whether it's legal, the question is whether it's illegal. I mean, something is legal unless there's something specifically says that it isn't. And there has never, ever been a case where an outside group has sued a district because part of their policy is to give their employees consideration when allowing an inter-district transfer. If you look at the Ocklawahamie High School District, there's one simple line that says, employees of district and children of district employees shall be considered in determining inter-district transfers. I don't have it exactly, the exact words online, but it's very clear. And to use a fear of a potential lawsuit that's never happened before can be used to justify the lack of any action. So you have a real tangible harm that's present before you if you fail to do anything, versus a hypothetical maybe perhaps someday someone may say something unreasonable. Again, it's a pretty clear choice or things to weigh before you. So I just hope you look at all the people in this room and realize that for every person here, there's 2 or 3 that couldn't make it. And this is a very important issue for many folks. So thank you.
My name is Pat Lopez. I'm teaching OIS. I've had some of the children in the classroom, and I have had some of my colleagues' children in the classroom that have gone through an hour It's really hard for me to put into words my feelings, because I have so many things I want to say, so I'm trying to be concise, which is difficult for people to know. I am so proud of the quality of education that we get at our school. The colleagues that I teach with are incredible. I just feel that the children of our colleagues deserve the same type of education we give our children. Do they deserve any less? I already spoke.
You already spoke.
But Adam reminded me of just one little point.
Barbara?
I
You
can,
already
okay.
went over your 3 minutes already. Any other comments from the public? Sorry. Any other comments from the public? Please.
My name is Lee Hudson, and I didn't come here for this, but I'm sort of amazed that the teachers can send their kids. And one of the things that I think, I mean, you're here to educate kids and give them values. And I always think that the kids are always watching us to see how we, what we actually do. We say one thing and we do other things, and they're watching and they're absorbing those values. So I would like you to think about this decision in those terms that we're going to transmit to the kids of the whole district.
Other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Tyson, do you want to?
Sure. So when I looked at the AR, actually, for those following at home, page 245, I mean, really, on the approval numbering scheme, I mean, number 1, to meet the child care needs of the student. I mean, I kind of stopped there. Everything else below really has to do with that, in my mind. You know, I liken this to the welfare of the student, and if we consider priority to those that are cared for after school by families that live within the district, then it really seems those that are actually teaching here during the day for our district would have a very similar line. You know, it's about, I focus this less on the legalities of who's going to be concerned about judging it, and less about the timeline on approvals, but more about the welfare of the student, because I think that's how I read this. So when I hear about, you know, I would hope the welfare of the student and our teachers would be first, I guess. That's kind of how I, you know, sums it up.
You know, I guess, you know, my feeling partly is, you know, of course, you want to give preference to the children of your teachers. At the same time, Maureen's telling us that basically every teacher who applies, with the exception of 2, have been able to have their kids attend school here. So when you hear that, it seems like it's more like a process concern, because the timing is late, because you don't know whether your classrooms are full or not till pretty close to the start of the school year, or even after the beginning of the school year. My concern is that, you know, my understanding is that trying to create something, as other districts have done, I'm not clear that that is, you know, would stand up to legal challenge. Could we do it? We could probably do it, but I don't know if, I mean, do we want to create something that we know could be challenged? When we have a process that allows teachers, students to come here, it's just the timing issue, and you know, not having them, you know, a preference. I don't think, I mean, the whole Allen bill line, I don't know that you can create a policy that gives teachers' children preference over other people who work in Orinda,
Okay, can I respond to
even
that?
though other districts have done it. It doesn't make it,
Well, so
I just would
why-
like us to get clarity on whether we can legally create that policy.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you
to
would-
jump in real quick before you go there, I mean, in my mind, it's more employees of the district.
Yes.
As opposed to just teachers? Yeah. Yeah, and I think the issue is the priority. We just heard 2 teachers and maybe more that said they were sent a letter of denial, they put their children elsewhere. Getting a letter of denial, you know, that's not indicating that you're going to be accepted, you just have to wait another week. I mean, that isn't what is told to my understanding, it's not what's told to the employees when they get a letter of denial, and that one teacher just told us that. So, I mean, you can say, well, they get in, but, you know, why are we treating our employees' children like that, where they don't know that they're gonna get in? What you're implying is they know they're gonna get in, there's no reason to worry, but that's not what we're hearing. There is a reason to worry. They may not get in, they may not be prioritized. And just in response to your concern about the legality, if there was such a legal issue, why aren't all these other districts being sued? Here's Moraga, right in their board policy 5117, you know, this is the second page. The first page talks about how their only interdistrict transfers are allowed if there's space, but then there's a section called priority. And the first line is, first priority will be given to children of Moraga School District employees.
So we need
If that was
clarity
so
on whether
bad,
that
they would
we
be
could do
sued.
that.
Yes, certainly. I wouldn't think we would be ready to adopt a policy until we're, you know, actually hear from our legal counsel. I suggested that already, but Joe wanted to wait. I think he wanted to get us to discuss it first, which is quite understandable. But it's in this one, it's in multiple other, Lafayette, and multiple other districts have it right in their policy. Acalanes, as Adam mentioned, it says right in there, district employees are given priority. They are given priority, the point is they're given priority before any other interdistrict applications, which sends the message to your employees that they're more important than the average person applying.
I
for
understand
interdistrict.
that, and I'm asking,
How is that
can
legal?
we do that?
Well, I think we can, otherwise all
Just
these other
because other
districts.
districts do
Okay,
it,
well,
doesn't mean that that's
I think we
legally
can
right.
because
And
all
that's
the other
the
districts
question.
do it
Yeah, I
and they
agree.
haven't been sued. And I would like to, you know, I would like us to indicate that we're interested in doing this, assuming it's legal. And then if it helps you, we can get legal.
Right. So
opinion.
to answer the question whether we think we can, I mean, I certainly think we can because you can basically take it to say that the employees that are serving our students on a daily basis are benefiting and directly their lives are improved so that their output to our students is improved. So I see it, yes, you can, very clear one-to-one right to it, so.
Well, I would like to see, I mean, a little bit back to Matt's point, I mean, I would like to see what legal counsel would have to say too, because if we're prioritizing, I like prioritizing, I don't like discriminating. So I don't like discriminating against city employees or post office employees or any other kind of employee that's here. So, like Matt was saying, we move someone to the top of the list, you forcibly move other people to the bottom of the list, even if we think the top of the list is more important. But it doesn't feel good, I'm sure, for the people who move to the bottom of the list. So I'd like some additional clarity on how often these things get challenged and what other districts do and what our exposure would be.
So I guess I look at it too, same point of view, that I don't feel we're moving anybody down the list, we're really moving our students to the top of the list.
I think that's what we would feel, but I think if you're a city employee and you saw the policy, I think you might feel like you were moving below the list.
Well, Chris,
I don't think so. I mean, I think the city would want, I think any employee in the community would want the teachers to have and the staff that's benefiting the students directly in that community a priority. I guess I'd welcome the individual that, bah humbugs that. I'd love to talk with them, but I think they'd be few and far between personally.
So one other issue, Chris, and it kind of gets into the nitty gritty of the policy, and I don't know if it's the right time to talk about it. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we as a board get a chance to look at multiple policies, because I do want to see what's out there specifically. One other danger we risk here is, my question is the first priority people that live in the district? And after that, then is their preference, if we were to move forward, is their preference to employees of the district? Because then there becomes this timing issue. I think we all know it, especially teachers of younger kids. So we have this influx of people who move in late August with a 5-year-old. Late August. And I know that Deb telling her story about, being denied right before school ends, where are we with people that move in a week before school starts? And it happens every year here. I remember last year at Sleepy Hollow was just an insane asylum with the number of kids that moved, number of families that moved in really late in August. And with the 100% assumption their kids were, they bought those houses based on the assumption their kids were going to be going to school 2 blocks away. So the other thing, and I don't know if it's the right time to talk about it, but there's this whole timing issue and flexibility to the district on the timing issue. It's like, what's the safe number of spaces to hold? We have some historical numbers on late adds and or late drops, but I think it is a fine detail that if we are going to examine these policies, I think it's really important to look at that. And again, it's something we can discuss. I don't know if does priority go to Orinda residents? Then would we then be giving preference? Would we be considering?
Yes,
Are
absolutely.
you saying that, okay, even if you have a policy that gives categories of preference rather than, putting everyone into a pool together, do you still have the same issue with teachers hearing really late?
A concern about
Does it address the concern of finding out earlier whether your child would have a space?
I'm just concerned about the date issue. I know we go through it in our policies really specifically, but I just think that's an important piece. We've heard specifically from teachers about, one of the correspondences I got from a teacher recently was just that the school near their home, private school, demands payment ahead of time. And that the inability to be able to wait for Orinda School District to make a decision, to wait and see if those spots get filled by people moving into the district in August, precluded them from being able to wait to hear from OUSD. Right? I think it's a significant piece. So I'd also be curious to see how other districts are handling that.
So I'd like to respond to a couple of things you said, Nat. One, regarding families moving into Sleepy Hollow. If we gave employees a preference or priority in inter-district transfers, obviously that does not impact, families moving into Sleepy Hollow. That for residents, they obviously have top priority over any inter-district transfer. So your issue is just about timing, right? And regarding timing, inter-district policy giving priority to employees doesn't mean that they're automatically in. It means they have priority over other applications of other inter-district transfers. So if you have a grade level that's almost full anyway, you're not going to be necessarily admitting inter-district transfers at that grade level. So that, there's so many factors. That's why I looked at this and I thought, well, I'll come up with a proposed policy, but it's not easy to do that without having a discussion and hearing where people are at, because it's actually quite complicated. But, that's a very basic thing. Even if you just give employees a priority in the inter-district policy, that doesn't assure them that they're going to be automatically in, but they know they would be in before anyone else who was also applying. The thing that Chris was talking about, what about all the other employees, like city employees, that's where the inter-district residency policy comes in. And that's what I understand we used to have language in there that said employees, and that's what education code says, that any district may allow employees that, it doesn't specify school employees, just employees that work within your district boundaries, that as long as you work more than 10 hours, I think it is, that you can attend school in that area. So that could be done if there's support for that. That would trigger more people, that expands the pool of potential employees from just school employees to a much bigger pool of people. So that seems
That
to be
also
more.
puts everybody included, every employee's
Yes,
children
much
on the
bigger
same footing as
everyone
residents
else.
of Orinda.
No, well,
Yes.
okay, yeah. That does, because they're basically giving them residency status, and that's why I said at the beginning of this, I wasn't proposing that, I was proposing giving employees a priority and interdistrict transfer, just because I know that in passive, that, I don't know, but
So it's
that's more
not just about,
problematic. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't discuss it, maybe there's
so
some
the
way.
question is creating a preference, a legal policy, or is that considered discriminatory policy, but, given it's a legal challenge, and so we want to create such a policy.
It seems to me we have multiple legal challenges in many things that we're doing as a school district.
I think this has been a good discussion. I think I'm hearing consensus that we would like more information on other district policies that are in place, and we would like some input from our legal counsel on what would be legally possible.
I mean, I'd go so far to say that the things that we've talked about, I mean, I've seen policies where the employees of the district were first, siblings of those students within the district were second, employees within the district boundary were third, and then the financial hardships in terms of childcare and activities after school. So, I mean, I think there's plenty of districts that have done way more than just putting one on the list. I mean, they've outlined their schedule, if you will, of how they prioritize it. So I'm happy to review that. I think we're going to find that the ones we compare to, we're not leading the way on this one. So.
As far as prioritization goes?
As far as setting priority.
Right. Do you have thoughts on what else you would prioritize?
I'd say the order that I just spoke to is it addresses a lot of things I've heard tonight. You're putting the employees first, and then you're putting siblings second, depending on, usually siblings are transferring here anyway, for whatever reason, so it's probably a rare occurrence that there's a sibling inter-district transfer.
I don't know what you mean by sibling.
Sibling of a student?
Of a teacher's child?
No. So, employees first.
Okay.
Employees, students first. Siblings of students second.
Siblings of residents.
Siblings of students.
My kid's sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Next would be basically employees, students, children, if you will, that lie within the district. So this would address the post office or a city worker or anyone for that matter that in terms of transfer. And then the one we already have, which is for financial hardships. I mean, anybody by law can ask for an inter-district transfer.
Absolutely, and we're
In
talking
any
about,
matter, right? I mean, they can get on a plane and fly wherever they want to go to school.
well, and I don't want to confuse Allenville sort of residency.
I don't think we need to confuse the Allenville. The Allenville's its own standalone thing. I'm saying if we want to look at the policies that are in place, we're probably going to find comparable policies in comparable districts that we do other metrics against that already have several priorities, and the employees of the district's students or children is pretty high on the list.
One thing I think Chris, one thing I think we should add to the list is somewhere down the list, is Akalani's employees, because when our kids graduate from middle school, we want them to, Akalani's typically does take interdistrict transfers from the K-8 districts that feed into it, is my understanding. And I know that Lafayette is also just reviewing their interdistrict transfer policy, and they were having that discussion with Akalani's, and it's already in their policy or in their proposed policy. So that's another thing for consideration. If we're gonna do this, do we wanna consider allowing, that could be third, fourth, whatever, but I just wanna bring it up because otherwise you're creating a situation where your employees' kids may be in the district and then they get to 8th grade, assuming they're going to Miramani, and you find out, wait a minute, I have to apply, and is there room? And it's the same thing all over again. So it's just, if we want our students, our teachers' kids to, be able to continue with, as our kids do through Orinda schools, we would want to accommodate, or consider accommodating Akalani's employees somewhere down the list, not at the top, but somewhere. That's my thing to throw out there, and I just say that because I've seen it. It's in Moraga, it's in Lafayette's board policy, and it just makes sense to consider it at the same time.
So again, this item is on for discussion only.
Chris, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. I'm 100% in favor of district teachers' children going to school near in the school district. I just want to make sure that we do it thoughtfully and that we do it right.
So if we could, I think we have a consensus for getting some other district policies, some legal input, and possibly some prioritization of interdistrict transfers.
And Chris, as far as other district policies, and we have traditional districts we benchmark off of. Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is action item C, fiscal year 2013-14 first interim financial report.
So tonight in the board packet is the first period interim report. So the first period interim report is our first formal review of the budget that was adopted prior to July 1st. We have a minimum of 2 reviews per year. They're referred to as the first period interim and the second period interim report. For school districts that have qualified or negative certifications, they're required to perform a third period interim report. I don't believe this district has ever had to do that. So what's included in the report? The report includes a comparison of the original budget, which is the budget that was approved on June 30th. It has the board operating budget, which includes all the budget updates from July 1st through October 31st. It has the actuals to date, so it has the actual expenditures that were incurred from July 1st through October 31st, and it has projected year totals. So if we make any adjustments to the budget after October 31st, those would be reflected in the projected year totals. The report also has 2 multi-year projections. So included in the report tonight is the 2014-15 and 15-16 year budgets. So the Board of Trustees has to approve one of the following report certifications, either a positive certification, which says the district will meet its financial obligations, a qualified certification, which means the district may not meet its financial obligations, or a negative certification, which means the district will be unable to meet its financial obligations. So tonight we recommend that the board approve a positive certification for the 2013-14 first period interim report. A positive certification means that overall our financial status is positive, that our undesignated ending fund balance is projected to remain positive, and that both our 14-15 and 15-16 projected year budgets also have positive ending balances. So in looking at the numbers in the report, the first section reviews the revenues. In the revenues this year, for the first time, we have the local control funding formula instead of the revenue limit. It has a section on federal revenue sources, which includes special ed, Title II, and it's actually Title II Part A, which is improving teacher quality, and Title III, which is our immigrant and LEP funds. We have state sources, which include lottery, both restricted and unrestricted lottery, our mandated block grant, our tobacco use prevention education, Common Core state standards this year, and Proposition 39 funding as well. Under local sources, that would include our parent donations, interest income, rentals and leases, our parcel taxes, and also another portion of our special education funding. In comparing our adopted budget to our first interim budget, this first column has the, where am I at here? Is that even working? What was the other one? The first column has the approved budget, and the second column is our first period interim with a comparison, the difference between the two. This is a breakdown of our revenues by type. You can see that 57% of our revenues comes from our local control funding formula, 2% federal, 4% state, and 37% local. This is an unusually high percentage, but our district remains consistent in the support that we receive from our parents and our parents' clubs. On the expenditure side, our expenditures are broken out as follows: certificated salaries, classified benefits, which include both classified and certificated, books and supplies, services and other operating, capital outlay, which is basically equipment over $500, other outgo, which is our transfers for our out-of-district placement, special education students, and our indirect costs. And here's our total expenditure line. So this is what was in the budget adoption as of July 1st. This is where we were at the end of October 31st as far as the budget is concerned and the difference between. Here's a breakdown of our expenditures by type as well. And you can see that 80% of our budget is in salaries and benefits. In our multi-year projections, we're required to analyze our current plus 2 subsequent years. So in this budget report, as I said earlier, it includes the 12-13, which would be our current budget, 14-15, which is projected year 1, and 15-16, which is projected budget year 2.